it doesn't appear that it was a butt whooping if somebody took a butt whooping, right?
So basically what it is, a kill shot's a kill shot, basically.
Exactly. If you can work on learning to judge 20 yards and 30 yards, get good at that. But just note that time that you're spending fixing those or adjusting a new setup or fixing stuff is taking time away from you becoming a better archer.
I tend to get a bow and then shoot it for 6 years and then go get another one. And it's like my old friend, man. It's like my buddy. I practically give him names. And
at the moment of truth, you need to be very proficient with your setup. I mean, what did they say, 10,000 hours to become an expert at something?
Hey, I did train to hunt, or I did this tournament. I was there. I've been there. I've been under pressure, and I did it then. I can do it now. And I think that has a huge impact in your ability to hold your mud. What's the most memorable hunt you've been on and why?
We are Full Draw Film Tour, and we are listening to
The Gritty Bowman!
Yeah!
Hello, alright, you're listening to The Gritty Bowman, home of gritty bow hunting films, interviews, tall tales, and a wee bit of manly boasting.
I'm South Cox, and you're listening to The Gritty Bowman.
Hey, this is Corey Jacobson, and you're listening to The Gritty Bowman.
We bone and raised outdoors, and you've been listening to The Gritty Bowman.
There you go.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Jordan.
And you're watching
The Gritty Bowman.
All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowman podcast. I am here with Phil Mendoza. Phil is, I first found out about Phil because I lived under a rock. I found out about Phil from Aaron Snyder on when he went sheep hunting with Phil in Colorado, drew a bighorn sheep tag, and Phil and him went on an epic sheep hunt. And I have a lot of respect for Aaron Snyder, and he had nothing but positive things to say about you, and it got me interested in meeting you and getting to know you. And it just so happens you also are doing a podcast called The Natural Born Hunter, and so I could listen to catch you there some and check you out on Facebook. And so I've done a little spying on my end and kind of stalked your Facebook page, and it's been pretty cool. So I wanted to get to know Phil, talk to him. This is the first time we really talked. We talked on the phone a little bit yesterday, but this is all real fresh. And so we're going to get to know each other right now, and everybody else can follow along. And Phil, for folks who don't know who you are, can you just tell people a little bit about yourself, where you're at, where you live, how long you've been hunting, how you like to hunt, just some things about yourself?
Yeah, I guess first off, I'll start off by saying I don't discriminate men or women stalking my Facebook page. I'm okay with either. I'm a happily married man, but no, I live here in Denver. I've owned a pro shop, No Limits Archery, since 2009, early 2009. Grew up rifle hunting for the most part. After college, it was right after college, I just, that need for that additional challenge, other than doing some recurve stuff with buddies and shooting in the backyard or farting around in gym class and stuff. When I was younger, that was about the extent of my shooting with archery equipment. We had always done the week-long pack-in with the wall tent, no running water, that kind of stuff. That's what our family did when we rifle hunted, and we hunted hard. So I kind of learned what it was to rough it a little bit there. So after college, started getting into archery, started picking up one tag with the archery, one tag with my rifle, so I could still do the family thing, and just kind of went from there. 4 or 5 years in, started shooting some tournaments. That's actually where I came across a mutual friend of ours, Aaron Snyder. I was kind of learning, I was getting more into the tournament scene locally here at that time, and Aaron was shooting real well. Aaron was one of the top guys to beat locally here, and he did some regional events. So that's about when I met Aaron 10, 12 years ago, I guess, is about what it was. So like I said, I got further along with shooting tournaments and got more into archery, and decided to go down the rabbit hole of trying to run a business with, with the passion. And it's been a learning experience every day, but I'm happy to do it, man. That's essentially who I am, and what I have my finger in here locally is that I just trying to turn a passion into a business.
Yeah. And you just moved, right? And you got a new opening, a new shop.
Yes. So we've been working on this project for 3 years, believe it or not, because we're about 10 minutes north of downtown Denver. You're familiar with Denver, so 10 minutes northeast. There's a little pocket here where it's unincorporated. That's not in a city area. We were able to buy some property here for a family business that we have, and in the process of developing that land, we figured this would be a great spot for an outdoor archery range. Is what I wanted to do, and so we had already been in business with the indoor shop for a little while. Long story short, we went through the painful process of rezoning and getting a conditional use to have an outdoor and indoor archery range here. So we finally opened August 1st. We're having a kind of little grand reopening party this weekend.
That's awesome. So right there in Denver, you're not far. You're not far from downtown.
No, like I said, I mean, it's a very unique situation. We're right along the Platte here. Anybody that's in the Denver metro area, we are just a little south of Thornton. We're a little bit northwest of Commerce City, just a little bit northeast of Denver. It's a little pocket of unincorporated property that the county allowed us to do what we wanted to do. So that's what we're doing.
So Phil Mendoza has brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I've got an older sister, a younger brother, and a younger sister. So there's 2 boys and 2 girls in the family.
All right. What number are you?
I'm 2.
Number 2.
Yeah. So
Do they hunt too?
My brother does. Yeah, my brother does. My sister is actually married to a guy that plays on the Royals. They just won the World Series, obviously. So my mom and dad and sister and brother-in-law, they're all out there now. Just got done with that parade today. So pretty exciting for them there. But yeah, my younger brother and I would say he's probably my main hunting partner. He doesn't follow a lot of the same preparation tactics that I do, but I tell you what, man, he's got that natural instinct, that killer instinct when it comes down to being at the right place at the right time and being able to execute. He's got that, Takes him a little longer to hike up the hill, but he's, like I said, we're going to Nebraska here on Monday, and so he's getting pretty geeked up for that.
So he's got the part that you can't teach.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I work so hard on everything else, and I'm good at that part that you can't teach, but I'm not great. I wouldn't say by any means, but I think make up for it with working my can off and, doing all the little things that sometimes people don't think about. But he's that guy that, he's a good shooter too. He's a really good tournament shooter. And, but as far as the physical preparation side, man, he does, he'll work out a little bit, but he jokes around when we go elk hunting. He says, "No, I'll just call him into me. I don't need to worry about hiking the mountain. I'll just call him into me."
Well, and speaking of that, you've done Train to Hunt. You won Train to Hunt twice?
So I have competed since 2013, where that was the first event I did, and since then I've done total six Train to Hunt events. Very first one, I took second place. I'd say that was kind of one of those kind of key moments in your life where it's kind of like, eye-opening as far as I played college baseball. Always athletic growing up. Very physically active. Got to a point in my life where I was just taking certain things for granted, not working out as much. This Train to Hunt event's coming into town. Yeah, let's go try it out. A couple buddies are gonna go, and I tell you what, man, I got my butt handed to me that first time on the challenge course, and after that, I'm sure Kenton hears it, time and time again. I'm gonna do better next year. But before he left, I said, I'm gonna be getting that gold camera on my neck next year. You watch, and I did. The very next year I won the Colorado regional, the Wyoming regional, and I won the nationals in 2014. Last year I competed in Arizona and won the open class in Arizona. And then I was able to do a team event. I competed with my cousin who owns a CrossFit gym. His partner, blew a knee out like the week before the Colorado event this year, and he was hurting for a partner. I said, I've already qualified, and I'm probably not going to do nationals because of my sheep hunt. So I just did it with him, and we won that one here as well.
That's pretty cool. So for people who don't know what Train to Hunt is, can you give us a rundown on that and who Kenton is?
Yeah, Kenton is the founder of the Train to Hunt Challenge.
What's Kenton's last name?
Kenton Claremont. Traintohunt.com is where you can find him, and he's got an online training website, and then he runs the challenge events, the Train to Hunt Challenge events. The Train to Hunt Challenge is essentially I would say there's no tournament, and this is my honest opinion, there's no tournament that will simulate hunting, right? There's just nothing that simulates hunting. There's things that will get you prepared for hunting, and I think as a Western bow hunter, this is probably one of the closest things to get you prepared for extreme Western style hunting. What it is you got 3 parts to the game. The first one is the bow hunters 3D course. It's if you shoot 3D archery, it's not that. You're shooting at a 3D target. You're shooting unknown yardage, and you're scoring. Essentially, he changed the scoring this year. The 10 ring, which is about that 4 or 5 inch ring in the center, and the vitals. Scores for 5 points. The vitals, which is like normally the 8 point, the outer lung area, scores 3 points, and then anywhere on the body scores 1 point. Misses a 0. So it's a game where it's not a plus par game like actual like ASA or IBO where you can get a bonus ring, a 12 or an 11. It's not that kind of game. You can only go down, so you want to be as consistent as you can with the yardage judging. But he brings in hunting scenario shots, draw from your knees, stand up, move to a designated point 10 yards away and take a shot. Draw and hold your bow for 30 seconds, take a shot. He's got a follow-up scenario where you get to judge the targets, but you've got your first animal, let's say it's out at like 40 yards. Take your first shot. As soon as the shot breaks, timer starts, you got 10 seconds to load another arrow and put a follow-up arrow in a different animal, at a different distance. So there's a lot of different, hunting scenario shots, I would say. The second part is a meat pack event, what they call it. It's basically a sandbag carry, 80 to 100 pounds for most men's divisions. The distance varies based off of terrain, off where it's at. Arizona this year, we had a 1.5 mile course. In Colorado, it was 3/4 mile course. So but it was hillier. So it depends. From what I understood, Nationals was a lot longer this year. Again, not being able to going on my sheep hunt, I can't tell you there. But so that's the second portion of the event. The last portion is the challenge course, which incorporates running. You've got 6 stations usually where you do a physical activity. Sometimes it's a belly crawl to a target. You shoot an arrow. As long as you hit, then you go on to the next target. If you miss, you got a 20 burpee penalty, and then you proceed. So it's important to make a good shot. On the challenge course, you can use a rangefinder. So, but the way after you shoot all your targets, they score your arrows, so you can get time added or subtracted based off shooting well or shooting poorly on the targets as well. So, great game. Like I said, as far as what's out there right now for the Western hunter to kind of measure yourself or judge, I've shot ASA archery for a long time, and that's I would say that probably the best shooters in the world shoot there. I can, from a true shooting perspective, but from a Western bow hunter perspective, Train to Hunt is your measuring stick for Western bow hunting. So it's 2 different games, but it's a great game. I enjoy it.
Yeah, that's cool. We touched on this a little bit yesterday. There can be a real how do I say it, like stigma attached to or dislike. There's a whole hater crowd out there for things like CrossFit or Train to Hunt, where it's like you don't need to be that fit or healthy or be able to run a mountain. There's a lot of other things you need to be able to do that are important. And if you spent a little less time doing those things, you would be a better hunter. There's that argument. What do you think about, fitness and this train to hunt kind of thing, getting you prepared to hunt? How has that helped you? And do you feel like it cost you anything, or like there's another thing you need to do to round out your abilities?
Yeah, no, I think that whatever you choose to prepare yourself fitness wise, be it CrossFit, be it triathlon training, be it just strength training, strict muscle, just more lifting, kind of bodybuilding style lifting. If for those that do that, I don't think you can be too physically prepared. Personally, I think that we touched on it on the Natural Born Hunter podcast that we had Matt Davis on our last episode, and I agree. I think mental toughness is probably the most important thing in any Western style hunting, any hunter period, but specifically hunting the West when you have a lot of terrain variation. So I think that mental toughness is number one. Second to that, and I would say a 1A and 1B is your shooting, your physical ability. Can you get by with one lacking a little bit? Yeah, you probably could, and a lot of guys do. But those guys that to spend that extra time to prepare themselves physically, or to spend that extra time shooting their bow and getting very proficient with their setup, I was a perfect example this year. I went out on my sheep hunt, and there was some shot scenarios that I really couldn't practice for, having to shoot 75 plus yards on a 45-degree downhill slope and being able to read that the rangefinder cuts weren't exact at that distance. So you never can be too prepared. I felt like I was ready to go. First opportunity, I felt sheep was going to hit the ground within a good opportunity. And even after I saw that arrow hit over its back on my first miss, I still couldn't believe it. Yeah. But it was that all year, and even the last couple years, that time you spent grinding it out, sweating, pushing through a tough workout, or spending that time when you don't want to shoot your bow, and you at least get that 20, 30 arrows in for that day. It was easy just to pick up and say, you know what, the next one's going down, and learning from that mistake. So I think it's a three-headed monster, if, in my opinion. And when I work with, because I work with some people here, I'm doing private lessons and doing some training here at our shop. And it is that it's the physical, it's the shooting, and it's the mental, all in the one. For you to be the 1%er, you have all three of them. Mm-hmm. I think you could be a top 10%er with two that are very good and one that's okay. But if you want to be that top 1 or 2% or whatever that, that touted top of the top, you gotta have to have all three.
Now I think about this a lot because, I like to go to CrossFit just because I like to exercise. I mean, I'm kind of sick like that, and I like to, feel the pain and push through, and I don't know, it's part of my playtime. It's Brian Call's playtime, to go and just give it all I've got and come home exhausted. There's just something fulfilling for me in doing that. When I first started working out a lot, maybe it wasn't so fun. It wasn't as much playtime as it was just penalty for eating too many donuts for too many years, Yeah. But I do think once you get yourself to a basic level of fitness that you crave action and movement and getting out there, and I think it greatly improves the quality of life that you live not just during exercise and while you're but even just after, when you're at home, just in your day-to-day life. So I think that it's a big commitment sometimes when people look at it and go, gosh, Phil's working out 24/7 and he's shooting his bow all the time. When does he have time to have a life? And I'm just not motivated like that. But how do you feel about that?
No, the whole.
Do you have a life?
I do. I'm trying to find that comfortable balance with. I've got a 6-year-old and a 1.5-year-old at home now.
Wow.
A beautiful wife at home that puts up with a lot of crap from me, and 2 jobs. So it's something that, a lot of people look at me and they're like, man, how do you do it? And it's like, you just do it. You set you know what you got to get done for the day. You get up early, you get started early, and it's usually, whether it's a quick cardio session or some like a Metcon type. I don't go to a CrossFit box per se. I follow some of Kenton's workouts. My cousin Jesse with Anchor CrossFit, that he comes in and works with me with our boot camp style workouts here. He's helped me out with getting some workout ideas and stuff down. And a long time ago, I was certified as a personal trainer when I was freshly out of college. So I've got a pretty good idea as far as what I need to do. So 30 to 45 minutes first thing in the morning, and then I'm off with the day. So sometimes it turns into 10:30 at night where I get to get my arrows in, where I get to shoot my bow. But when you start eating, I eat good, I don't eat great. Every once in a while I'm eating a sandwich with the bread, and I'm not preparing for a fitness like a model competition. Exactly, right? So I know certain things are kind of supposedly not great for you, especially if you're following like a paleo diet or anything like that. But I've got 2 kids that, I enjoy the situation sometimes. I mean, I take them out for ice cream. So do I penalize myself? I don't look at it that way. I look at it like, what I'm choosing to do. I think I've got a good balance. I understand my body. I get the time in that I can. When I was in 2014, when I won nationals, I was working out twice a day for like the 2 months leading up to nationals, because that was that time when you crave more, right? I'd get my cardio in the morning, or like a Metcon type workout in the morning, and it's like in the evening time, it's like, no, I can do more, and I do some strength training, or I do a pack workout, and it just. But that was pushing the boundaries as far as that balance with home time, work time. So this last year, I've kind of just backed it down to where I'll still work out 6 days a week, but usually just limit it to once a day. So I don't know, the people that don't do it or that talk crap about it, they haven't seen the benefits of what it can give you, or they're not willing to put the work in for that. And you know what? I'm not here to judge you for that. That's okay. But just don't judge me for what I want to do, right? And I think you probably see it the same way.
Yeah, I think you said it. You said it just right. I mean, I feel a lot the same way. I think that, like I said, for me, I look at it as my grown-up playtime. To get out and lift weights and run around and climb a rope at the gym or shoot my bow. All that stuff is highly relaxing and rewarding for me. So I don't look at it as, oh man, I gotta go do my workout today, and I push myself, make myself. It's not like that. It's like I can't wait to get there, hang out with the guys, have some fun, laugh, lift some weights, run, and then go with the rest of my day. And it just gets me all charged up and excited. So I don't look at it like that. I also think from years ago when I was trying to get in better shape, I had friends who got into some triathlons and stuff, and they talked me into doing it as well. And then I played basketball in the city league here in Portland, Oregon, and a couple games a week. And those things kind of kept me hungry to stay in shape and helped me, push a little harder. Knowing that I had a triathlon where I was going to run X miles and ride a bike and swim, I was like, it got me, outdoors, exercising a lot more diligently. But I will say this, that it even jumped to another level when I went to a CrossFit gym. And I've been to a bunch of CrossFit gyms. When I started working out, it was just with my brother-in-law and I in my basement or his garage or just outside in their yard. So we didn't, for like 3 years, all we did was work out the 2 of us. And we didn't include anybody else. It was just us just hanging out and working out 2 or 3 days, sometimes 5 days a week. But then I did go to a gym, a bunch of gyms, just to go for the day or just to meet some new people. But then I found a gym where I just clicked. where that group was just my gym, my people,
Yeah.
and that community took my fitness to another level. There's so much. What I'm trying to get at is I got so much out of that community that my wife got cancer last year, and the gym was just a really neat place to go. They were really supportive, and I have a lot of people who reached out to us and helped us get through some of that time during her chemotherapy, and brought us over all these paleo meals, which was pretty cool because I'm kind of a picky eater. And lots of meat, which I appreciated, and elk, stuff like that. It was pretty cool. And having that community, I think, is huge. And when I heard you on the Natural Born Hunter podcast talking to Kenton Claremont, and you were talking about the Train to Hunt, it really piqued my interest because you guys talked about the community. And one of the things you talked about was how you supported each other.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, what is that Train to Hunt community like, and what is it as someone who hasn't done it and has kind of observed from the outside? What have you gotten out of that, and is it similar to what I'm experiencing at my CrossFit gym? What do you think?
I would say yes, because I know what you're talking about. Not exactly, and that's your scenario, right? But I know what you mean by that. When something just feels right and it clicks and it just works out. The Train to Hunt community. The biggest thing I could say is, having competed in archery events for 10 plus years, 95% of the events out there, even on the local level, it's
Cutthroat.
It can be very cutthroat, right? And then you start bringing in when there's money on the line, and sometimes people's true colors come out, and they don't shine very well. Let's just put it that way. So when we started doing these Train to Hunt events, it was, the event itself, the challenge course, where, like I said, the very first one I did in 2013 is different from the way it's structured now. Then it was just a challenge course and a 3D course. There was no meat pack. But we got to watch everybody. We didn't get to watch them on the course, but we get to watch them the first exercise, and as they take off, and as they're running up that last hill to come through the finish line. And to see people running alongside their competitors, cheering them on to get them through the finish line. Once they pass the finish line, people are helping them lift their packs off their back, give them a hand. It was one of those deals where we're not competing. It was that feeling of you're not competing against each other, you're competing against yourself, and then seeing where you lay or where the score kind of lies. That's what it really brought that to light. And I guess it was something that was contagious right off the get-go, because we started immediately after that first event. We did a boot camp at my shop on Sunday mornings, and I was like, well, it's 7. I remember it was 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock for a month leading up before hunting season. And there was 18 to 25 guys that were showing up, and girls. There was a couple of girls there every morning on a Sunday with their packs on, with some weight in their back, and we were getting after it. And it was like, you know what? There's something to this, because not everybody knows they're not perfect. Everybody has room for improvement here, but it was the egos got set aside, and that's where I'm very competitive when I go to these events. Don't get me wrong, but I've learned over years of competing when to turn it on, when to turn it off. So as soon as when you say the first arrow gets released for the first shot, or or the timer starts for one of the events, you're probably not going to want to have a very friendly conversation with me at that time per se. Not that I'm an a-hole, but it's just I'm focused, and I'm there to do the best I can for that, whatever it is, 10 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever long that event's going to take. But when we're done, and I've got my fellow bow hunters and friends that are just, like I said, they're there to support you, how'd it go, ask questions. It's like I said, it's something that's it's contagious. Like I said, is a good word to describe it, because there's just nothing like it out there. And I've since really stopped shooting some of the ASA shoots, partially because I have a second son right now. Since a year and a half ago when he was born, I kind of stopped shooting that circuit. It took a lot of time and commitment to travel for those. But when I seen what the trade-off was, I was like, well, I can't really justify going to those events anymore, but I sure can't justify going to these. It's a little bit closer to home. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I would say that will you find that community with Train to Hunt? I think that as it grows and as some of the people that have been doing it since it started continue to travel with some of the events, I have a hard time believing anything that it's going to be anything but what it is, because I think if somebody wants to be an a-hole at one of those events, they're going to get kind of shoved to the side pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, we had at Colorado, there was a couple guys that regional level CrossFit athletes. Josh, the guy who won the open class, and couple of the other gentlemen that were there. I think one's from down the Springs. Top-notch fitness competitors. I mean, obviously, to be a regional level athlete for CrossFit, right? It's big time.
That's serious business.
Yeah, and nicest guys to talk to. They're bow hunters like the rest of us. They have strengths, they have weaknesses. So it's something that everything gets talked about. It's like hunting camp. It's just in a different scenario where you're still helping to identify where you need to get better before hunting season starts. And it's done in a tournament format, but that's kind of what it is.
I was gonna say, and I played basketball, did some triathlons, and then I did some workouts like P90X, in my garage, and then I started doing some CrossFit workouts with my brother-in-law at his house. It didn't take long before I realized I wasn't as fit as I thought I was, especially when I'd show up and we'd do a workout and I would beat him pretty handily, whatever the workout was, and it was pretty easy to beat him. Well, then the next day it would be a different workout and I would get smoked by him. And you started to realize that he's built differently. He's got different types of fitness, and he's super fit. I try to be a fit, and yet when we go head to head, it depends on the workout. We know ahead of time usually who's going to probably top out when we compete. We push each other because we're that different, and it makes me realize, I'm good at X, Y, and Z, really good at that, but I stink at ABC bad, and I spend all my time working on ABC. And they don't seem to get that much better. And it's really humbling if you're pushing yourself that hard. When you did Train to Hunt, was it humbling? What'd you learn?
Yeah, so when in high school, I had my start to working out, we had a great coach that we did powerlifting. I mean, to start at 15 years old and your introduction to lifting weights is powerlifting. For some, it was very intimidating, but the coach... his coach Isamoto, I mean, he was I think the guy had like 10 knee surgeries. So from the waist up, he was yoked. From the waist down, he couldn't do anything because he had bad knees, right? But the guy was great, got us started. So I always had a great base of strength as far as when I got into college and everything with working out. It just depended on my cardio level as to where I fell as far as the activities I did. So with Train to Hunt, it was that first one I did that I got, like, I think that was 25 guys or something in the open class, and I was like, I finished 7th, but I wasn't close to the top 3 guys time-wise. And that's when it was like, I'm sucking wind up and down these hills, and I know I shouldn't be sucking wind. So I knew what I needed to do to fix myself, but it was really the cardio base. I don't do a lot of max lifting anymore. I don't do. I don't feel I need to. I'm 36, gonna be 37 next year, and it's like I'm not old. Neither one of us are old, but at the same time, it's like we're not 25 anymore. We're not 22 anymore. So that's where with me, I just identified. I've got a pretty good strength base. I maintain that, and then my cardio is what really gets amped up, or just the duration of a workout preparing for Train to Hunt.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, kudos to Kenton. Sounds like a really neat event, and it sounds like that community is there, and that culture, that community where everybody supports each other, that's what I want to see in the hunting industry, in those hunting communities. Because too often, what you get is division, backbiting, fighting. I watched the Train to Hunt when I was at Tamarack. And just you can't help but stare and watch and see the competitors and what goes on and the high fives, and it's just super cool to see everybody just competing,
Yeah.
And but from the outside looking in, there are some people who are going to be really intimidated by that, by competing. They've never done like a CrossFit event or a triathlon or anything like that. And it always amazes me because I think a lot of people, I've introduced a few people to the gym I go to, and I've seen new people walk in, and I'm really impressed by like the soccer mom that comes in and no idea and just pushes it. And, in a year, they're just, it's amazing what happens in 2 years. It's amazing how they get there, but it's intimidating.
Yeah.
But one thing I say about CrossFit is that community is really open in a way that they just encourage you so much. But it's a positive place. So if Train Hunt's like that, what do you have to say to somebody who is new to this kind of thing and is looking at it from the outside? Maybe they're not that fit and they're not in that good a shape. You don't want to embarrass yourself. You don't want to look like an idiot. You don't want to be the guy that can't get off the mountain or can't carry his pack, and you don't want to be that guy, right?
No, but here's where, I guess to answer that question is, there is the team events now, right? There's men teams, there's co-ed teams, there's women's teams. That's a good place, I would say, to start, because you and I talked about it before. Having an event that you plan for and you schedule for helps you to stay motivated and on track. Now, if you have a hunting buddy that you sign up to do one of these events with, now you're going to try to keep each other accountable to get as prepared as you can, for that. So the team event, I would say, is a great place to start because you're going to bust your hunting buddy's chops now and then. That's going to happen regardless. So why not just do it in this format? It's no different, in my opinion, of what you're already dealing with. So that's a good place to start. I will say that as far as being embarrassed to come in last or to, because it's about knowing your capabilities and pushing past limitations. Casper last year, for example, there was a gentleman that was on the course that at that point we were still having to do 200 pounds in the open class for the meat pack challenge. And there was a gentleman that I can't remember his name, but I think he made 3 or 4 trips at it because he knew that he couldn't carry 150 or 200 all at once, and even 100 was too much. So he made, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 trips. And mind you, when you load up your pack, you go down around the designated point and come back. You got to go empty all the way back and come back for your next load, simulating going to the truck and coming back, right? Mm-hmm. So he actually was up and down this hill like 6 or 8 times. Like I said, I don't remember how many trips he made. And Kenton even had to start the next heat with this gentleman still on the course. But when he got done, everybody was cheering for him. Everybody was cheering for him to finish off. And it's because he didn't quit. He knew his limitations, but he was there because he's getting ready for hunting. And that's where I have a ton of respect for those guys because, physically, we're not all dealt the same hand, right?
Amen.
So it's one of those deals that this guy knew. It didn't stop him from competing in the event. He came out. He knew what he could and couldn't do, and he did it to the best of his ability. And it just happened to be with smaller chunks. So if that's the way it's got to be, man, that's the way it's got to be. So and like I said, there wasn't a single person that was snickering or laughing or anything. Oh, this guy, he sucked. And it was none of that. Yeah. It was very encouraging from everybody.
That's awesome. It's funny, that part of it doesn't really bother me or intimidate me or give me any concern. It's like I'll go and I'll compete, and if I was last, I don't care. If I did really well, that would be great. But shooting my bow, that does kind of I'm that guy that's like I've never shot a tournament really, until I started doing some of these summer shoots just for fun, and I see these guys that just shoot so well, and I'm okay, I do all right, but that's a little intimidating, right? And
can be.
I don't want to be the guy that's dead last on the archery shoot either.
Well, and Kenton's done a good job with changing the scoring because when he first he's been evolving the game as he goes based off seeing certain things that benefit the game and keep the gap from being so spread apart on certain events, specifically the shooting. One thing that he's done, like I said, so getting rid of the bonus ring basically eliminates those guys that can just pick off those 12 or 11 rings. It doesn't matter. If you're in the 10 ring, if you're in the very center of the 10 ring, you get the same score if you're just barely touching the line 4 inches away. You know what I mean? So that's where, and then cutting the score essentially in half. So instead of getting 10 points for that center ring, you're getting 5. At the end of the day, the appearance of what the score is it doesn't appear that it was a butt whooping if somebody took a butt whooping, right?
So basically what it is, kill shot's a kill shot, basically.
Exactly. That's what we're there for, and that's where it's. He's done a good job of changing that.
I can do that, Phil.
That's it. You keep it in the vital area, and that's where that game is. It's hard for somebody to break away in that part of the game.
So how does a guy prepare for the archery part of the game?
So you're shooting on 3D targets. So obviously being able to judge an animal target is important. I would say that somebody who's newer to judging yardage, don't psych yourself out as to 50 or 60 yards, right? There's a very limited amount of targets that are out at 50 or 60 yards. If you can work on learning to judge 20 yards and 30 yards, get good at that, because the majority of your targets are going to be around that 30-yard area anyway. A few of them longer and some of them closer, but just take it in steps. Take it in like anything else.
Yeah.
You're not going to learn to you're not going to learn to fly a plane the first time you get in there, right? I'm not a pilot. I'm just trying to. It's one of those deals that everybody's used to being able to pick up the rangefinder, click their target, and shoot. And most of us do that in a hunting situation anyway. So being that skill of judging yardage it's not easy. It's hard to teach. It takes a lot of time. But that's where I say when we work with people, just start with the closer distances. Start with learning to identify targets and the size, and then as you get some practice with it, then you can start getting into the next step of judging yardage, which is looking at detail on the target to help you decipher if I think that's outside of 40 yards because I really can't see any detail on this specific target. I can see the detail in the tail or in the eyes on that target at 35 yards. I know it's not. So stuff like that. Don't get psyched out about the advanced ways to judge yardage. Just start with breaking it off into shorter chunks and start there. So the biggest thing is learning to judge yardage. The thing that this tournament and any other tournaments do is it puts you in a little bit of a pressure situation when you're shooting your bow, and as bow hunters, that's what hunting can be.
Right,
exactly. If you've got ice in your veins where it doesn't bother you when that trophy comes out in front of you, you're probably not enjoying hunting too much. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you don't, but if you don't get excited or your heart rate doesn't, start pounding when you get into those situations, then I don't know. That's what does it for me. I know, I can't speak for anybody else, but that's what we're trying to. Sorry, I got my little guy. That's what it's trying to simulate.
I get that. Yeah. In fact, going to some tournaments, and shooting and going with friends, especially friends I'm highly competitive with, and shooting my bow just locally with them, I can't stand to lose to those.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of them where I don't want to lose to that guy. Like I can lose to someone else, but not that guy. and that guy doesn't want to lose to me either. There's like a real battle going on, and but that adds a little more pressure to anything I can do to try to simulate an elk coming in to the call, or that big buck of a lifetime walking out, and being able to stay calm in that moment. Anything that can simulate that, I think, is awesome.
Yeah.
And that's why, I think I've improved my shooting dramatically in the last couple of years, and I think that's because I've been shooting in competitions a little more.
Tournaments, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
little
That's what's gonna carry people along further in any kind of high pressured situation with shooting your bow is repetition and more times in front of it. One of the highest pressured situations I think I've had was my very first tournament as a semi-pro in ASA. I made it the shoot off. They had a shoot off for certain divisions. Usually it's just a pro class. Well, at that event, the semi-pro class was a division that was kind of the guest competition that got to shoot with the pros on the shoot off. And you got 150 people huddled right behind you, around you, and it's sorry, you got the second generation here running around, but it was one of those deals that it was probably the highest pressure situation I've been in. I mean, we're shooting for, at the end of the day, it ended up being like $2,500, almost $3,000 that our division was shooting for. The first place essentially was going to take home, and I felt like I handled it pretty well at that time, and it was just because I'd been in those kind of situations so many times on different stages that I just, you tune it out and it doesn't bother you. So once you get to that point, whether it's train to hunt competitions or other 3D shoots or indoor paper shoots, I tell you what, you want some pressure, go to an indoor tournament, because the object of the game there is basically you can't miss. Once you get on the highest stage, if you miss once, you're done. You know, so you put yourself in those situations as much as you can, because it's just going to be, it's going to help slow down the game when you're out hunting.
So on that note, and I've asked this to like Corey Miller of Triple X Archery, who shoots a lot. Two questions. One is, what do you think guys are the most common mistake they make when shooting? Like what is it that you see the most guys kind of, you own an archery shop, and so what is it they're doing that's really messing up their shot, that if they could kind of focus on that thing, they'd be a little better? And what do you do, like, there's a lot of guys out there who have never shot an elk, never actually killed a big buck, because every time they get in that situation, they just choke.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started hunting, I missed a few shots where I could make that shot all day long, but I missed it because I was shaking so bad. I couldn't settle in. In fact, I blacked out. I don't remember what I did. I just remember pulling back and launching, right? Like nothing, my brain just failed me, So, so those two questions, what mistakes guys commonly make? What do you think? And then how do you handle that moment of truth?
Well, as far as the mistakes thing, it's something that I've fall guilty to myself, and I know a lot of people do, is there's the grass is always greener on the other side, right? So that new accessory or that new bow or that new arrow is going to make the difference. And what does it do? Well, let's take a rest, for example. Well, your rest that's been on your bow for a year and a half to 2 years, been shooting great, everything's fine, it's tuned properly to your setup. Well, now you just changed a constant and you implemented a variable. Now you've got to retune your setup. You've got to figure out the sweet spot of where it needs to be. Maybe you got to change your arrow length or something on there, right? So now instead of you if you focused on practicing, now you're focused on just getting your setup right again. So people lose a lot of time on just practicing because they're messing with stuff all the time. These arrows are going to be better than those arrows. Maybe not.
Right.
Or this accessory is going to be better than that accessory. In many cases, it could be, but just note that time that you're spending fixing those or adjusting a new setup or fixing stuff is taking time away from you becoming a better archer. And it's something that I own a shop, right? My business is to sell these things. And some of the guys that work for me here joke around. They're like, "Man, you need to leave," because you're too honest with some people when you're talking to your customers. And it's the truth. They'll say, "Hey, do I really need this?" And I don't think so. I'll tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I see, I guess, off the top of my head now, that you don't need a new bow every year. I mean, I get a new bow every year, but I do it from a sales perspective of, this is my business, so this is why I sell it. This bow that I'm shooting right now, the Nitram 34, is driving tax. I mean, learning where my mistakes were on some rangefinder cuts and that kind of stuff. When I go back to double check that and shoot it to what it should properly be, it's money, So, and I've already shot some of the new bows, so I'm excited for the new bows. But I think about it, it's like, do I need a new bow?
Right.
Probably not.
Right. But
this one's very, very good.
in the industry you're in, you kind of got to start over again with the new one and dial it in. And but 10 years from now, you got 10 freaking sweet dialed in bows, but you only need one.
Yeah. And I'm bad with getting rid of them too. I've got too many in my basement hanging up.
The good news though is that you get good at tuning and setting up bows.
And that's where, the some of the common mistakes that some other shooters that aren't proficient with tuning their setup, I can get past that a lot of times a lot quicker, just because I know my D-loop needs to be tied on this way. My peep sight is at this height for this axle to axle. So I can set up my bow fairly quickly, get it broken in, get the strings broken in, and eliminate a lot of that trial and error time.
Yeah,
but
that's something I need to work on, Phil. I'd get hosed. I'm absolutely lost. I mean, I know a little bit, but I tend to get a bow and then shoot it for 6 years and then go get another one. And it's like my old friend, man. It's like my buddy. I practically give him names and like.
But that's part of what I would say, kind of answering to your second question. When you're that familiar with the bow, you know how it's going to react, in a high pressure situation, whether it's, for example, if you're on a bull at full draw and you're holding back there what seems like over a minute, some people that don't know how their bow is going to act after you've been at full draw for a minute and a half plus, they may shoot and say, I don't know what happened. I was fine. Well, they probably came off their anchor point and their form was terrible because they're not physically ready and they didn't know how their bow reacts at that. But you've probably been in that situation many times. So that's where, how do you capitalize on at the moment of truth? You need to be very proficient with your setup. I mean, what did they say? 10,000 hours to become an expert at something?
Yeah.
If that's kind of the saying, think about it. You can shoot 60 to 100 arrows in an hour, times that by 10,000. Now, I can tell you that I can probably count the amount of people on two hands that I know that have shot that many arrows, and they're all target archers. So then how else do you capitalize on being able to be successful in the moment of truth? Tournament archery. Because, now Train to Hunt gives you that, okay, at least it's related to bow hunting in the West.
Pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the pressure, it's elevating your heart rate, and it's learning how to control, how to shoot your bow under with an elevated heart rate. Your tension heart rate is what the excitement factor. The adrenaline when you see a buck. When you're in a high pressure tournament situation, your heart rate gets jacked. There's no way to duplicate that other than getting very excited, or with fitness, raising your heart rate when you're working out, and now get it at 130 or 140, 50 beats per minute and practice shooting at that. So that's where, can you practice for it? I say yes. Is it the same? No, but shoot as many tournaments or these kind of events as you can, and it'll benefit you.
That's cool. That's cool. I remember being what you're saying really resonates. I can remember getting myself to a certain level of fitness where when I push myself hard, I felt like I was going to die, and then you finish the workout, you fall on the ground, you're like, oh, but I know like I'm writhing in pain right now, but in 5 minutes or 15 minutes, it's going to be like nothing happened. I'll be fine because I put myself there before. And when we've been in the mountains and we're chasing a herd up a mountain to try to cut them off and get there before they do, and it feels like on my chest, my heart's going to beat out of my chest, and I'm going to fall over and die. I know where I'm at because I've been there before, and I know, yeah, it sucks, but you're going to live through this. You're going to be fine. And I also can often look back at what I've done that was harder. Remember that time when you did this? That mountain was twice as steep and twice as far, and you did that. You can do this. And it's like that when you're out there in the mountain, when you're out there and that elk comes walking in, you can say, hey, I did train to hunt, or I did this tournament. I was there. I've been under pressure, and I did it then. I can do it now. And I think that has a huge impact in your ability to hold your mud, in the moment of truth.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, like I said, this year, the sheep hunt that I went on was probably the toughest terrain I've ever hunted. I've hunted for longer days on other hunts, and I've hiked further miles on other hunts. But as far as in that type of terrain, that's the most rugged terrain I've been in. But yeah, it was just that. I mean, Aaron and I kind of joked around. It's like, you think such and such would have made it up here, and we're like, I don't know, and then, and it wasn't because we're throwing anybody else under the bus. It was just, we know working out with, the Mountain Warrior training camp and I've done a lot of the train to hunt competitions. So I know I've seen a lot of people, their fitness level and, whether it's hiking or doing the train to hunt. So it's, you can develop an opinion as to, that person would totally handle it,
Right.
Braden, for example, the guy that went with us, he finished second, I think, in Colorado this year at the qualifier. And the dude's a CrossFitter, he's fit dude. He's maybe 165 pounds. And you put it in perspective again, when last year we were having to do 200 pounds on the meat pack event. This year he backed it down to 100, but man, Braden handles 100 pounds, no problem,
Yeah.
So it's because there's a handful of guys that they've done it. They've been in those situations, and with me, I know I can do it. And I knew that Aaron was, he's touted to be one of the most extreme backcountry hunters in the West, So when him and I were talking about going on this hunt, I was like, all right, well, now I get to see, if I'm really preparing, to a level of somebody that's respected and held as being one of exactly. Mm-hmm. So, and like I said, we hiked all over the place, and there's some stuff that when we got done with it, we just looked at each other and we're like, yeah, that sucked, but we just kept going. So, yeah, but I would say that it's to prepare for Western hunting. It's a good place to go check it out.
So on that note, I wanted to ask you another question real quick, and then I can let you go back to your family. I wanted to ask you, what is your most memorable hunt that you've been on now that you've been out there? You're 36 now. You've been hunting a while. What's the most memorable hunt you've been on, and why?
I would probably say that this year's sheep hunt would be it, just because for years, applying for sheep points, and that's that tag. It's one of those tags that you look forward to as being your one, not a one a lifetime, but.
Had you ever been on a sheep hunt before?
No. First,
so that was the first time you put your hands on a big set of curls and everything?
Yeah. Yes. Well, other guys had brought their rams into the shop.
But I mean, like an animal right there.
On the ground. No. Absolutely. First time. And that's where
I think cool.
It was part of it because I've been working out so hard and really focused on being the best bow hunter I can be. So now, and then having the test, right? Here's this tag where, you're in some of the tougher country in the state, and here it is. Go get it. One of the tougher animals, and then with the bow. So having that, and then having the failure on the first trip of missing and then being able to be successful at the end of the day on that hunt. And honestly, there was not trying to be cocky, but there was no doubt in my mind I was going to tag out on an animal. And whether it was because we were persistent, we were in the right place at the right time. I think it was all of that. We were seeing a handful of rams that we only got to see the big boy one time from a long way out. But I had already made up my mind. I was like, if I get a good shot on a legal ram, I'm taking a shot,
Yeah.
So it was that hunt. I think it was. And then, man, to have a couple guys like Braden and Aaron, just, I'm going with you, well, taking off of work.
That's the thing, dude. You're lucky because finding guys that are fit enough to do that, and then that will give up their time, and the combination's pretty tough to come by.
Yeah, that's where I like I said, I felt very humbled to have had those guys come with me, because I've got a lot of fit friends that are great bow hunters, right? But are they going to take off 5 to 7 days to come with you on a sheep hunt in the middle of the week? Probably not, and I don't
That's
fault
tough,
any of them
dude.
for it.
I mean, you only get so many days of vacation a year, and
that's it. So that's where when it all started coming together,
as epic as it is, there's an element of this is just a suck fest.
Yeah.
I mean, especially on the pack out and I mean, it's just work. I mean, flat out, it's hard.
Yeah, it was the phrase, the edited phrase of what it was. How bad of a poop sandwich is it? In not in those exact words, because that's all it was. I mean, my wife calls my hunting endeavors a vacation, and us hunters that work hard at stuff know that it's anything but a vacation. There's those few moments where you get to like take it in and soak it in and look at a view or hear the elk bugle or whatever it is. So there's moments there that are just priceless, but it's all work, man. It's all work.
I hunt blacktail, and I arguably it's probably one of the funnest species I hunt. And I gotta tell you, it's like physically, for the most part, it's just not demanding. I mean, it's a easy, relaxing kind of thing to go and do.
Yeah.
And whereas elk hunting, Phil, is like, it's torturous. I mean, especially in just an over-the-counter, do-it-yourself, heavily hunted public land space. Often, what gets you an elk down is the ability to just push harder, work harder, go longer than the next guy.
Yeah.
It's persistence.
That was it. I was able to tag out 2 bulls this year, one in New Mexico and one in Colorado, and it was that where we were in New Mexico, it was 95% of the unit was national forest. So we were getting in there, and there was other hunters in that area that we were hunting, but we would only see them when we were coming out at night, an hour past dark, because before daylight we were hiking in, and when we would park the truck and get off on the Forest Service roads and start hiking back in, we were going down the canyons where these guys wouldn't go, you know, and we were getting into elk regularly. So when I was able to tag out, these guys, that you can tell they weren't getting but 100 yards off the road, but
and I'm okay. I'm okay for guys who liked it, who want to do that. And I'm not, but there's a reason why there's like a 7% success rate or a 20% success rate in these units. And it's, definitely persistence, grind, being tough. All that has a lot to do with being able to get through it, be successful.
That's it. And that's where it was easy for me at that point, because it was just, we missed this opportunity, but we'll just go find the next one. And you just keep plugging away until you make it happen.
I'm 41. I'm getting to the point where when I'm out there and I'm doing that, I sometimes ask myself, why am I doing this? This is not fun. That had to go through your mind up on that sheep hunt when you're getting poured on in the rain and it's cold and Aaron's not prepared for it and he's freezing his can off, and it can be life-threatening at the same time. I mean, you got to be sitting there going, why?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
No, that reminds me of that moment, because we sat through a half an hour or 40-minute kind of rain hailstorm, and I was very limited with what I was wearing at that time, because before that storm came in, it wasn't that bad of weather, and that's why Aaron was kind of in the same boat. We just kind of got pinned down, and I tell you what, man, it was just that, you just suck it up just a little bit longer. I mean, I had sheep bed down at 150 yards from me when that hailstorm came in. And I think I was more nervous that they were going to see me shiver than anything because it was just that. But yeah, it was just, just move on.
What's your boy's name?
This is Dominic acting like a monkey.
Come here, Dominic. Let's see Dominic. Let's have
Dominic,
him say
come
hi.
here. Come here. Come here. Dominic's made many appearances on the Natural Born Hunter podcast. Come stand next to Dad. Look at the camera.
Hey, Dominic.
Say hi.
I'm Brian.
Hi.
Dominic got to go with me on my Colorado elk hunt this year. The last weekend, I pulled a camping trailer up where we were hunting, and when I got him up there, and he got to hear his first elk bugle, and he got to see his first bull this year in the field. So he was to see his eyes light up when we heard that bugle. It was pretty cool.
That's neat.
So
yeah. Does he take after you, or does he take after Mom?
No, this kid's a little ball of fire. He's more like Dad than Mom. I don't know. We joke around sometimes about whether he's got ADD or not, because it's just nonstop. Always got to be doing something. What's next,
Yeah.
But no, I've had him shooting a recurve since he was right before he was 3 years old. Is when he started shooting a bow.
Wow.
So he's gonna be ready. We're taking him on a turkey hunt next year in Nebraska because there's no age limit in Nebraska for youth.
Oh man, that's cool.
So yeah, he's gonna get started young. But no, that's it, man. It's a lifestyle over here for us, and we just try to live it every day.
Well, dude, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. I know.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
I want to talk to you some more down the road too, and maybe Will as well. Tell folks where they can find you. You've got the No Limit Archery Shop.
Yeah.
So they can find you on Facebook and Instagram, and the Natural Born Hunter podcast on iTunes, Podbean. Go ahead and tell folks.
Yeah, so I haven't graduated Instagram yet, so I'm still progressing my way through the social media ranks, I guess you might say. But yeah, nolimitsarchery.com is the shop web address here in Denver. Natural Born Hunter podcast is Will Bradley and I are partners on that. And
some of the guests you've had on there, just name a few.
Yeah, so we've had Matt Davis recently with Hoyt. We've had Tim Gillingham, pro shooter from PSE. We've had Andrew Munsell, one of the co-owners of Hamsky Archery, Maven Optics. So we're dabbling around on some Dr. Duck guys we had on recently, some film stuff, some outdoors. Kind of, your podcast and our podcast is very similar as far as some of the guests that we approach. And like you said, it's the conversations that sometimes people wish they would have been a part of. Hey, I wish I could have been there and listened to that conversation. Well, that's what we're doing. We're just trying to bring those situations more to the listeners. Sometimes people can learn a little bit, and sometimes people can laugh a little bit.
Yeah.
But So and then I do one other kind of my blog site where I've got some stuff in the works for next year with a new tournament that we're going to be hosting here at the shop. It's championshipbowhunting.com. And that's got my hands in a little bit of everything.
Cool. All right, man. Well, it was a pleasure having you on, and I guess we'll stay in touch. And I'm gonna check into this train to hunt thing, and we'll see.
Check it out, man. We'll look forward to meeting on one of the events this next year.
Yeah, be cool. All right, man. Thanks, Phil.
Okay.
Stay gritty.
All right, have a good night, man.
All right, bye. All right, friends. Thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Don't forget about our deal with Mountain Ops. Type in the word gritty at checkout and get 20% off until the end of the year. For those of you who have not seen the Full Draw Film Tour this year and want to go, check out their website for their tour schedule. And if you haven't done so, go and subscribe to our YouTube channel or to the Gritty Bowman TV podcast on iTunes or Podbean so you can see all the latest video content we have produced. And be sure to have a look at the new Elk 101 website where you can find our podcast and other great elk hunting content. Thank you for taking the time to leave us your feedback. We really appreciate your sincere support of our show. Finally, let me leave you with this quote by President Theodore Roosevelt, who in 1905 said, "In a civilized and cultivated country, wild animals only continue to exist at all when preserved by sportsmen. The excellent people who protest against all hunting and consider sportsmen as enemies of wildlife are ignorant of the fact that in reality, the genuine sportsman is by all odds the most important factor in keeping the larger and more valuable wild creatures from total extermination." Friends, always take the time to educate those around you about your role as a hunter in preserving the wild creatures of this world. If you don't, who will? As always, good luck on your hunts and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.